9 Stoic Truths to Clear Your Mind from Toxic Thoughts. There is a silent war happening inside every human being. A war most people never talk about. While life presents us with external battles, work, relationships, responsibilities, disappointments, the fiercest battle is the one taking place inside the mind. Because it is entirely possible to live in a peaceful home, sit in a comfortable chair, eat a warm meal, and still feel consumed by anxiety, insecurity, resentment, and fear. No external enemy can match the cruelty of your own unchecked thoughts. The mind, when left untrained, becomes a tyrant. It creates storms out of silence, danger out of shadows, and suffering out of memories. The Stoics understood this long before modern psychology gave it names. They lived through plagues, war, betrayal, political chaos, and personal loss, yet they learned something powerful. You may not control the world, but you can always control the mind that faces it. This is where your freedom begins, not in changing the world, but in disciplining your thoughts. What follows is part 1 of a comprehensive Stoic guide, rewritten, expanded, strengthened, revealing the first set of truths that can cleanse your mind, sharpen your clarity, and liberate you from toxic inner noise. Read slowly. Let each principle sink into your bones. Stoicism is not information, it is transformation. Truth 1. Your thoughts are not you. Most of the pain you feel does not come from life. It comes from believing that every thought you have is the truth. You have thousands of thoughts every day, strange, dark, anxious, irrational, hopeful, angry, and imaginative. If each one reflected who you truly are, then your identity would change every few minutes. But Stoicism teaches a liberating truth. You are the observer of thoughts, not the thoughts themselves. A negative thought is simply a visitor. It knocks on the door of your mind. You decide whether it may enter, sit, or stay. Imagine your mind as a vast sky. Thoughts are clouds. They pass, shift, and dissolve. Some are light, some are heavy, but none are permanent. The problem begins when you mistake a cloud for the sky. When you think, I failed, therefore I am a failure, you have merged your identity with a temporary emotional reaction. Instead, Stoicism teaches you to create distance. Not I am anxious, but I am experiencing anxiety. Not I am broken, but I am having a painful thought. This space gives you power. In that space, you can breathe. In that space, you can choose. The Stoic exercise is simple but profound. Write down the negative thought, then question it relentlessly. Is this absolutely true? What evidence supports or contradicts it? What would a wise mind think in this situation? Will this matter a month from now, a year from now? You will discover that most thoughts have no foundation. They felt heavy, but they carried no weight. Freedom begins the moment you stop treating thoughts as commands and start treating them as suggestions. Truth 2. The present moment is your only real life. The mind loves to drift, backward into regret or forward into fear, and every moment lost to the past or future steals the only life you actually have, the present. You cannot change what has already happened. You cannot live in what has not arrived. All suffering intensifies when you resist this truth. Regret chains you to yesterday. Anxiety chains you to tomorrow. Presence frees you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." Why? because the present is the only place where action exists. Only the present gives you the ability to choose, to change, to respond. Think of how much stress comes from attempts to control what cannot be controlled. Replaying what you said, worrying what someone thinks, predicting the worst, holding grudges, imagining disasters, reliving failures, fearing the future. This is wasted life. The Stoics believed that the untrained mind acts like a wild dog, always running ahead or circling behind, never sitting still. But clarity comes when you train your mind to return to now, to the breath, to the action in front of you, to the reality you are living, not imagining. Here is a Stoic practice. Whenever your mind spirals into regret or fear, say, "This moment is my life. I return to it." The past is a teacher. The future is a mystery. The present is the only place you can actually live. Truth 3. You suffer more in imagination than in reality. Seneca declared, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." And he was right. How many times have you feared something that never happened? How many times have you felt rejected simply because your mind invented a story? How many times have you replayed conversations that never occurred? How many times have you catastrophized a situation that turned out fine? The mind is capable of creating suffering even in the absence of actual danger. You can be safe, but feel unsafe. You can be loved, but feel unloved. You can be progressing, but feel behind. The mind loves to dramatize, to create worst-case scenarios, to assume the worst intentions, to magnify small issues into disasters. But Stoic wisdom teaches you to challenge this imagination. Before worrying, ask, is this happening or am I inventing it? Is this fear realistic or is it a story? What evidence do I have? Is this pain real or imagined? Most of the time you'll discover this truth. Your mind is fighting ghosts. This is why Stoicism emphasizes training the mind like a warrior trains the body, not through force, but through discipline. Imagine if all the energy you spent worrying was spent improving yourself. Imagine if all the time you spent replaying fears was spent building courage. Imagine if all the mental storms were replaced with clear action. Your life would transform. And it begins by refusing to fear what does not exist.
Truth 3. You suffer more in imagination than in reality. Seneca declared, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." And he was right. How many times have you feared something that never happened? How many times have you felt rejected simply because your mind invented a story? How many times have you replayed conversations that never occurred? How many times have you catastrophized a situation that turned out fine? The mind is capable of creating suffering even in the absence of actual danger. You can be safe but feel unsafe. You can be loved but feel unloved. You can be progressing but feel behind. The mind loves to dramatize, to create worst-case scenarios, to assume the worst intentions, to magnify small issues into disasters. But Stoic wisdom teaches you to challenge this imagination. Before worrying, ask, is this happening or am I inventing it? Is this fear realistic or is it a story? What evidence do I have? Is this pain real or imagined? Most of the time, you'll discover this truth. Your mind is fighting ghosts. This is why Stoicism emphasizes training the mind like a warrior trains the body, not through force, but through discipline. Imagine if all the energy you spent worrying was spent improving yourself. Imagine if all the time you spent replaying fears was spent building courage. Imagine if all the mental storms were replaced with clear action. Your life would transform. And it begins by refusing to fear what does not exist. Truth 4. Your reaction is the source of most of your pain. Life will give you challenges. People will disappoint you. Events will not always go your way. But the real suffering begins when you react impulsively. A person insults you? Does their insult hurt, or your interpretation of it? A friend ignores you? Is that pain real, or an assumption? A failure occurs. Is it the failure that wounds you, or the meaning you attach to it? Epictetus famously said, "It is not the event, but your judgment of the event that troubles you." This truth is like a sword that cuts through illusion. An insult is just noise. A failure is just a moment. A rejection is just a redirection. A bad day is just a day. But when you attach stories, sensitivities, assumptions, and fears to these events, the pain multiplies. The Stoic approach is simple. When something happens, ask, what is the fact and what is my interpretation? Separate the two. This separation gives you emotional freedom. It removes unnecessary suffering. You cannot stop life from happening, but you can stop the chain reaction of toxic thoughts that follow. That is the beginning of mastery. Truth 5. Control what you can, release what you cannot. The heart of Stoicism lies in understanding control. The Stoics divided the world into two categories: things that are within your control, your thoughts, your choices, your reactions, your attitude, your effort, your integrity, your focus, your energy. Things that are outside of your control: other people's opinions, outcomes, the past, the future, rejection, misfortune, how others behave, what life gives you. Suffering increases the moment you try to control what was never yours. When you try to fix people, when you try to change outcomes, when you try to rewrite the past, when you try to predict the future, when you try to force someone to love you. All of this is emotional slavery. Freedom begins the moment you ask, is this my responsibility or not? If it is not yours, let it go. Let it fall away like a weight removed from your shoulders. When you accept this, your life becomes lighter, your mind becomes clearer, your peace becomes stronger. You stop fighting the waves and learn to navigate them. The Stoics called this mastery of control the foundation of inner strength, the ability to stay calm, composed, and powerful in a world you cannot fully command.
4. Truth 4. Your mind cannot heal in a toxic environment. A polluted mind is not always the result of weakness. More often, it is the natural response to a polluted environment. Stoicism teaches that the mind is like a flame, delicate, easily disturbed by the winds around it. You can be disciplined, wise, intentional, but if you continuously stand in storms of negativity, anxiety, comparison, and noise, even the strongest flame begins to flicker. Most people underestimate this. They try to think positive, but spend their mornings scrolling chaos, their afternoons absorbing drama, and their nights drowning in overstimulation. Then they wonder why their minds feel heavy and their spirits feel cracked. The Stoics had a simple rule: guard your mind as fiercely as you would guard your home. You wouldn't let thieves, liars, and troublemakers wander freely into your living room, yet people allow negativity, gossip, and pessimism to break into their mental space every day. A chaotic room creates a chaotic mind. A toxic person plants seeds of self-doubt. A pessimistic environment breeds pessimistic thoughts. You cannot think clearly in a storm. So the first step toward mental freedom is environmental honesty. Ask yourself, who around me drains my spirit? Who constantly pulls me back into old patterns? Whose voice becomes my inner critic?
What digital noise is shaping my thoughts without permission? Seneca warned that the people around us slowly shape our character, for better or for worse, and he was right. You absorb the emotions, habits, and mindsets of your surroundings the same way a sponge absorbs water. So what's the Stoic action? Clean your space, clean your circle, clean your mind. Not out of cruelty, not out of superiority, but because peace requires pruning. Distance from chaos is not a punishment, it is self-preservation. And once the noise fades, your thoughts finally stop fighting for air. What rises in that silence is clarity, strength, and a mind that can breathe again. 5. Truth 5. You are draining yourself by fighting battles that aren't yours. One of the greatest weights on the human mind is unnecessary responsibility, the emotional burden of fixing people, rescuing situations, and controlling outcomes that were never yours to control. Stoicism repeatedly reminds us, most of your suffering comes from holding what was never meant to be held. You carry guilt that isn't yours. You carry expectations that aren't yours. You carry emotions that belong to others, not you. You carry futures you cannot control and pasts you cannot rewrite. And the mind becomes toxic, not because life is overwhelming, but because you are trying to be responsible for things outside your natural domain. The Stoics call this the dichotomy of control, the most liberating principle in all philosophy. There are things you can control and things you cannot. Wisdom is knowing the difference. Freedom is acting only on what you can. You cannot control other people's choices, their opinions, their moods, their loyalty, their mistakes, their reactions, their timelines, their love, their understanding of you. But you can control your thoughts, behavior, boundaries, effort, attitude, response, integrity, discipline, emotional regulation. The more you shift your focus inward, the lighter your life becomes. Like trying to hold the ocean in your hands, the more you try to take responsibility for everything, the more life slips through your fingers. And the shame of failing expectations you should never have carried becomes a toxic loop. Here is the Stoic practice. Every time your mind spirals, ask, is this within my control? If the answer is no, release it. If the answer is yes, move with calm intention. The world will always demand more from you than you can give, but you have no obligation to carry more than what belongs to you. Once you stop fighting every battle, you reclaim your energy. Once you stop carrying the weight of everyone's emotions, you reclaim your peace. Once you stop trying to rewrite the past or predict the future, you reclaim your power. And that is the essence of mental clarity, a mind that is lightweight because it is no longer overloaded with illusions of control. 6. Truth 6. Your thoughts lie when you are exhausted. Most people don't realize this truth until they're deep in the storm. A tired mind is a dishonest narrator. When you are exhausted, emotionally, mentally, or physically, your thoughts become distorted. Small problems feel catastrophic. Simple tasks feel impossible. Neutral comments feel like attacks. Uncertainty feels like doom. Loneliness feels like unworthiness. Your brain begins amplifying every fear and magnifying every flaw. Not because the situation is truly hopeless, but because your nervous system is overwhelmed. The Stoics understood the importance of recovery. Marcus Aurelius often wrote reminders to himself about rest, compassion, and stepping back, not as weakness, but as discipline. Seneca wrote that sometimes the most productive thing you can do is to rest. And Epictetus taught that a person cannot think clearly when emotionally flooded. Modern people make the same mistake. They try to fix their mind while burning out their body. They try to argue with fear while running on no sleep. They try to think their way through overwhelm when what they need is to reset, not analyze. A toxic mind is often just a tired mind begging for a pause. Ask yourself, have I slept enough? Have I given myself silence? Have I been carrying too much? Have I been forcing myself to push when my soul needs rest? The truth is simple. You can't heal a burned-out system with more effort. You heal it with restoration. This is not laziness. This is not avoidance. This is strategy. A rested mind sees solutions. A calm mind sees truth. A nourished mind stops attacking itself. When you don't rest, your thoughts become enemies. When you do rest, your thoughts become allies again. If you feel flooded with negativity, don't ask, "What's wrong with me?" Ask, "What do I need right now? What have I ignored too long? What part of me is tired, not broken?" The moment you give yourself permission to rest, your mind begins to detox naturally, not through force, not through resistance, but through clarity reborn. 7. Truth 7. Your mind follows the story you tell it. Every thought you repeatedly entertain becomes a story. Every story becomes a belief. Every belief becomes a filter through which you experience your life. Most people are not suffering from life. They are suffering from the story they tell about life. A neutral event happens, and the mind adds layers. I'm not enough. I ruin everything. They must be judging me. I'll never succeed. No one really cares. I'm always behind. None of these stories are facts. They're interpretations. They're assumptions coded in emotion. They're reflections of past wounds, not present reality. The Stoics practiced a powerful exercise. Separate the event from the story. For example, event, someone doesn't reply to your message. Story, they don't care about me. Event, you made a mistake at work. Story, I'm incompetent. Event, someone criticizes you. Story, I'm worthless. The stories you craft shape your inner world. Your inner world shapes your emotions. Your emotions shape your actions. Your actions shape your destiny. To clear your mind from toxic thoughts, you must rewrite your internal narrative. Stoic questions to challenge any story. Is this true? Is it permanently true? Am I adding unnecessary meaning? Would I believe this story if I were calm? What would someone wise say about this? What is a more rational story? When you change the narrative, you change your identity. When you change your identity, you change how you experience the world. Your mind is not a prison, it is a storytelling machine, and you are the author, not the captive. So choose stories that make you stronger, not weaker. Choose stories that illuminate your path, not darken it. Choose stories rooted in truth, not fear, because your life will always follow the direction of the story you repeat.
7. You suffer more in imagination than in reality. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than reality." This is not poetry, it is diagnosis. Your mind is capable of creating storms so violent that you forget the sky was clear just moments earlier. You replay conversations that never happened. You anticipate betrayals that will never arrive. You invent failures before you even begin. And worst of all, you treat these mental fantasies as facts. Most toxic thinking begins when the mind becomes a novelist of nightmares. It creates catastrophic endings not because they are true, but because fear wants certainty, even if that certainty is painful. Stoicism teaches a radical discipline. Look at what is real, not what is imagined. Ask yourself, has this actually happened, or am I predicting disaster? Do I have evidence or just emotion? Is this fear keeping me safe, or is it keeping me small? A Stoic refuses to let imagination become a tyrant. Instead, they shrink fear by putting it under the light of reason. Here is a powerful practice. Name the fear, break it down, question it, shrink it. For example, I'm afraid I'll fail. To what does failure look like exactly? To what evidence suggests this outcome? To if it happens, could I recover? To have I survived worse? Every time you question your fear, it loses one limb. Every time you face it, it loses another, until eventually it becomes small enough to step over. Your imagination is a tool. Do not let it become your prison. 8. What you repeat, you become. Repeat a thought enough times and it becomes a belief. Repeat a belief often enough and it becomes your identity. Repeat your identity long enough and it becomes your destiny. This is the quiet law of the mind, a law the Stoics understood better than anyone. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Your mind will take the shape of what you frequently think." If your inner dialogue is filled with, "I'm not enough," "people will judge me," "I always fail," then your life will reflect those phrases, not because they are true, but because you rehearse them daily. The mind is like clay, soft, impressionable, and shaped by repetition. Toxic thoughts don't become powerful overnight. They accumulate, they drip, they repeat, they carve pathways in the brain until they feel like home. But the Stoic truth is this: you can rewire your mind with new repetitions. Not empty affirmations, not fake confidence, but intentional, disciplined self-talk. For example, instead of "I can't handle this," say "I can handle this moment." Instead of "everything is going wrong," say "one step at a time." Instead of "I am broken," say "I am rebuilding." These aren't delusions, they are choices. Stoics weren't trying to manifest wealth or fame. They were trying to build stable, rational minds, and rationality begins with disciplined repetition. Think of your thoughts as seeds. Whatever you plant, you will eventually harvest. Plant fear, harvest limitations. Plant anger, harvest bitterness. Plant courage, harvest resilience. Plant discipline, harvest freedom. You are becoming something every day. Choose who. And 9, the present moment is your only territory of strength. Toxic thoughts thrive in two places: the past, where regret chains you; the future, where anxiety overwhelms you. The present is the only place they cannot survive. Why? Because the present moment contains only what is, not what was, not what might be. Just the raw, unfiltered reality. Marcus Aurelius practiced a powerful technique: return to the present whenever your mind wanders. He did this dozens of times each day, sometimes hundreds. Here's the reason. Your mind is strongest when it is grounded in now. Most suffering comes from time-traveling thoughts, replaying mistakes, predicting disasters, worrying about judgments, imagining loss, fantasizing pain. But ask yourself, what is wrong right now, in this exact moment? Not in your memories, not in your projections, not in your assumptions. Right now. Most of the time, the answer is simply nothing. You are breathing. You are alive. You are safe. You are here. The Stoics called this the discipline of attention. It means bringing your awareness back from the past and future and anchoring it to what's happening right now. Here are 3 Stoic anchors. Anchor 1, your breath. Your breath is always here. It cannot exist in the past or future. When you follow it, your mind returns home.
Anchor 2. Your physical surroundings. Notice the temperature of the air, the sounds in the distance, the weight of your body. This grounds your awareness. Anchor 3. The task in front of you. Whether you are washing a dish or writing an email, focus on the one action you are currently performing. The Stoics believed mastery comes from total presence. You don't control yesterday's mistakes. You don't control tomorrow's outcomes. You control only the action you take right now. And if you improve your now consistently, everything else improves as a result. You don't need to control a lifetime. You only need to control one moment at a time. Closing Stoic reminder. Clearing your mind of toxic thoughts is not a single breakthrough. It is a discipline, a training of the inner world. The Stoics did not aim to eliminate all negative thoughts. They aimed to become stronger than them. Your mind is not your enemy. It is your greatest weapon, but only if you learn to wield it. Remember, you suffer more in imagination than in reality. What you repeat becomes who you are. The present is where your power lives. If you practice these truths daily, your mind will not just quiet, it will transform. Not suddenly, not magically, but steadily, like a blade sharpened over time. This is the Stoic path. Simple, demanding, liberating. And now it's yours to walk.